we are eternally grateful we got saved at a young age.
I hated being vulnerable. I hated asking for help.
I feel like the Lord talked to me, you're not saved, you need to be saved.
I'm independent. I don't want help. And you had to break down all those barriers.
And I remember walking to the prayer bench and I was like, I am never coming down here again.
I just remember like not being able to wait till it was over. Like, I'm getting saved tonight.
The only words I remember repeating is saying, Lord, I know I don't deserve this.
After I got, I felt like completely exuberant.
Like just relief washed over me.
I remember going to school the next morning and just jumping and dancing and running around and being like, I could not stop grinning.
Hi, welcome back to God Vineyard Podcast. You're so rude. I'm trying to introduce.
I know.
Good. You introduced me.
She's trying to be a sprinkle.
I was trying to say welcome back
I
to
have really bad intrusive thoughts, so apologies.
Do you want to introduce the podcast?
Nope, I don't.
That's what I thought. Welcome back to God Me Podcast. We're so happy to be here again with you today. We're your hosts. My name is Sophia Benyon. This is my cousin Peyton Benyon. This is my little sister Camille Benyon. She comes when she wants.
I hate your hand. Welcome back to our channel, everybody. If you don't know by now, you are in for a special episode today.
Because Camille's here.
Welcome back to our channel.
Special ed, they think I am.
If you're new here,
I told you. See?
please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. She's not letting me say it.
See, she's not letting anybody say anything today. Maybe you should run the show. That's what I keep offering you.
What we want to talk about today.
Don't try to encourage me to say it. You started it, you finished it.
It's about how we got saved.
For any of our listeners,
Redeemed. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so. So please say so if you made it to this point in the podcast.
Go. I was going to say that for any of our viewers that don't know what we are referring to when we say saved, we mean simply, as she already stated, redeemed, washed in the blood of a lamb,
Converted.
became a Christian, became a part of the Church of God, turned our lives around, made that change.
Repented of our sins.
Yes. And he
Made a
became a new
full
creature.
180.
full 180.
Said,
That was like a 720 right there.
Okay.
We are interested in telling our story. We hope you're interested in hearing it. I think it's actually quite unorthodox, and due basically completely to the way we were raised. Like I've never heard anybody that wasn't raised like this having even a similar.
That was raised like this?
Somebody
That
who wasn't raised like this. I've never heard them even having a similar conversion story to ours. So, do I have to start?
Yeah, how old were you when you got saved?
Okay.
Sister Sophia.
So let me just start by blowing you out of the water, and then we'll go back and explain.
be it.
I was 7 when I got saved. And I'm not talking about 7 when I got baptized or 7 when I got initiated or said my catechism or whatever they say. I'm talking about when I had when I had a conversion experience, a true salvation experience. I was 7 years old. I guess I'm expecting most people to be shocked because so far in my experience, most people that I say that to are very shocked. But I think maybe Peyton will start talking now a little bit about how we were raised and why salvation became so important to us at such a young age.
Yeah, so I got saved not much later. I got saved when I was 8, on my way to being 9. And I think it was honestly just church-wide a cultural expectation. I remember being 8 and feeling like I am old to not be saved, right? Like, and we got saved the old camp meeting traditional way.
But we had full-blown conviction. It wasn't like we were like, no, we knew.
They would be preaching and we knew like we're not saved and we're not right.
Yeah. Like if I die,
we're going to hell.
There's a place waiting for me that I don't want to be in.
I was scared. I was legitimately scared, which some people could say is wrong, is abuse. And I think there's a careful line, but we're completely undamaged. Yeah. The facts are, I remember when I first started feeling conviction, I was 6 years old. I know I was young, but I was raised around this. These are my
It was God, like there was so much light.
Like, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. No, I was just saying because Sophia was saying that she was under a lot of conviction at that age. And yeah, part of that has to do with how we were raised, but also Sophia is that personality type. Like super sensitive, like she's just going to feel sorry for whatever wrong she has ever done and want with her whole heart to make it right and to be good, you know? Like That's part of your personality.
Right. So, okay. So, yes, it was due to how we raised, but also personality.
Yeah. So, yeah, combination.
So, I was 6, and I remember, you know, and like I was saying, my earliest memories. So, this is Sunday school. This is family devotions at home. This are early, like, Bible stories and praying together and the Lord and Jesus and what it means to be saved and who Jesus
died
is
on the
and,
cross
and what sin is
yeah.
and how you hurt God when you
And
sin
all the
against
books
him.
we were given in school.
Oh, and
all
like
the
your
school
story
devotions.
hour.
Yes. Your
them
Uncle Dan and
all
Aunt
the
Sue.
time.
all the time.
Probably as racist
memorized.
as all get out, but
Well, that's how we learned our Bible.
learned our
a lot
Bible
of it
stories.
as young children.
yeah, their Bible stories are good.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying that consumed our lives. And I'm not saying we didn't have any other regular children's storybooks, which we did.
But yeah, I mean, we did play regular children's things, but we played them like we played church when we got
played
together.
service. Like that was the fun game to play. Get your dolls, play church.
Yeah.
And
You know?
I mean that's what our life revolved around. Sunday morning Sunday school, then Sunday morning service, then Sunday evening service. We had Wednesday evening service. The highlight of our lives was camp meeting.
Yes.
Was meetings when we all got together and had a week straight of 2 or 3 services a day for a week. We loved
And
that.
we loved
Yes,
it. Oh, yeah.
yes.
Still do, yeah.
Yeah, of course we still do.
What?
I'm just thinking how
We can start
it's not
getting
this-
into-
we don't
oh.
love it in the same way that we did as children.
Well, because we're a
Yeah,
lot more
well, we didn't-
responsible.
Yeah.
It's like more stressful now.
Yeah, like,
It's a lot more stressful,
gotta do
right?
your
Like
part, you
we're
know?
preachers, and we're like, do we have to actually say something? We got young people's meeting. We got this. We've got
Yeah.
prayer requests.
When you're a child,
blah,
you just
blah,
show up and enjoy yourself.
Morning devotion prayer.
yeah,
Especially
when you're a child, you
after-
just come to see your friends.
Especially
and go to
after you're
children's
saved
meeting.
and that pressure's off. Because I'm telling you, the pressure is real.
It's legitimately miserable.
Yeah, it is.
It actually
so I
is.
was gonna say that I had conviction. Like I feel like the Lord talked to me. You know, you're not saved. You need to be saved. But besides that, it was also each other. We
Peer
put pressure
pressure.
on each other. Our other little friends were saved.
I remember one of my little friends got saved. She was probably like 6 or 7 years
Was
old.
it? Please tell me it was our producer.
No, it was not. Me and her were mad because this other little girl got saved and we weren't saved. Okay, we were like 6 or 7, and everyone was rejoicing and writing another name's been written in the Lamb's Book of Life
Singing
and
that song,
hugging
"A
her.
new name's written down in glory."
And hugging her, and we were sitting there so jealous, like, well, I want to get saved. What in the world? Why did she get all this attention? But
So
it
it
was
would be
just
both.
like
It would be
yeah,
peer
it was all of
pressure
it. Some of
and-
it, right. We talk about a child's experience, right?
Right.
Some of it legitimately is that, and I wouldn't have known that then, but looking back now, I definitely
Yes.
There was like
understand that.
more than peer pressure though, because there was like sibling pressure.
Hey,
Because Sophia in services, there'd be like messages
thought she
preaching,
was the
right? And
Holy
it'd be like
Spirit.
they would be preaching about like hell, okay? Like the devil. And I was like
devil.
a very stubborn child.
She still is.
And I would
She wasn't
sit there
once.
in the
She
pew
is.
and be like, well, I don't care. I want to go play and eat food.
and sleep. No sleep.
And sleep. That's true. Probably mostly sleep. And Sophia would come to me after service like, Camille, I don't really understand how you could sit through a message like that and not be shaken to the bone.
okay, I did not say that. I was like 8 years old.
Basically, she's like, I would have run straight to the prayer bench before the message could even stop.
Whatever.
And I like feel bad a little bit, but then I'm like, nah. Like, obviously, eventually, theOrd dealt with me. But.
I remember when we were at camp meeting and Sophia put her arms around me and
I did not do that.
Yes, she did.
my arms around you. No, I didn't. No, I
And she
didn't.
said, it's going to be so much fun whenever you both get saved. And I remember me and Camille being like half convicted and half annoyed and looking at each other like,
Because really, we were mad. We were feeling bad, but we like thought it was low key.
I did not put my arms
Annoying.
around you, Peyton. You definitely juiced that story up.
like, I
true.
honestly did
This
not
is
juice
true.
that story up. That's really
I
true.
have
That's
no
really true.
recollection of that.
And I remember doing the same things once I got saved.
To other people?
Oh yeah. I
we
felt
felt
like
like it was our responsibility.
now I can.
You're safe.
Yeah.
Now
Well,
put
that's part of
pressure on
how
other
we
people.
grew up too. Like, no,
Right.
you need to help your friends.
You
which
have a
is good.
responsibility.
Like,
It was a
you
good
do
burden,
need to.
right?
Like, I am my brother's keeper.
Yeah.
Also,
Oh no.
I forgot.
Good. So anyway, back to my conviction. I remember like in Sunday school, our Sunday school teacher talking to us and telling us we need to let the Lord deal with us and don't push him away when he speaks to you because you might get far
he'll
away.
never come back.
You won't hear his voice, you know? So I would try to not think about the fact that he was talking to me so that I wouldn't be pushing him away. Like it was so
Like your
nonsensical.
child's reason.
I remember the first time I ever like seriously thought about getting saved was one time during a message in our big annual camp meeting, and one
this
of our main preachers, yes,
Salvation story?
yes, Sophia It was a message. The message was so scary. Okay, go ahead.
Because you're going to tell this, but I'm going to get to it.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so, and then I was just going to say that at nights, I would get so scared. At night was always because, I don't know,
Same.
somehow the
I
dark.
would sit up in my bed and look out the window and beg and
God
pray to God
not to come back yet.
Please don't come back.
Because
Because I
I
knew
know
that
I'm not
that
ready.
trumpet was going to sound, and I would hear a train by my house, and I'd be like, it's the trumpet! It's it! I'm done for! And I would go up, and I would sneak to my parents' bedroom, and I would think, like, I'm going to ask them if I can get saved. And I would sit by their door, and I would, like, see if I was going to knock. And one time, I actually was so frightened, I actually did knock. And then I went in, and I completely chickened out. And I was like, I was just scared of the dark or something. Like, I was like,
But it
never mind.
really was conviction.
Yeah.
So
The Lord really did deal with us. Like,
Yes.
we were at the age of understanding. We had enough understanding.
And let me be clear,
that He actually dealt with us. Like, we felt actual conviction. And we knew we were not doing
but,
right.
okay, it would be so unfair of us to say that everybody comes to that age at the same
No,
time.
absolutely
I think
not.
people come to we call it the age of accountability. I think some people get there at 10, 15,
25.
who knows?
The Lord, yeah.
The Lord deals with people in the way He
And
deals with people.
before you understand, you would be safe, right? You're not
Right.
going to go to hell because you're not
safe.
aware.
No.
Right. And you're not aware. So
And not everyone gets salvation the same way. Like,
Right.
oh, I need to get saved. Get on my knees, pray.
yeah, it doesn't all work like that.
Not all.
God deals with everybody in their own way. The scripture says the grace of God has appeared to all men. That
Yes.
assures us that He does deal with everyone, but it's different and at different times. God just happened to come to us when we were young, and we just had that understanding. It was a child's experience, like Peyton mentioned. We didn't know everything, but we knew, hey, this sin is doing wrong against God. I know these things that I've done that are wrong against God. I need to ask God's forgiveness. I need to be saved. We had that terminology in our minds. We
And
could
people always
understand
wonder,
it.
like, what did you do when you were a child, right? But, like, just the understanding. I'm like a super passive aggressive child.
You're saying, what did you do as a
what
sin?
sin? Yeah, like
sin
what did you
did
need to
you
get
commit?
saved from? But like there were things that I knew. Like I said, I was a very passive aggressive child. So I remember my Sunday school teacher telling me, like, she said, you can obey physically, but disobey in your heart. And I thought to myself, good thing. Good thing. And I was mad. Somebody told me, go sit down. And I sat down and I smirked to myself and I said, at least I'm disobeying in my heart. Really? In my heart?
Like
I'm
you were
running
glad you were
all around and standing up and being disrespectful.
And you were glad.
And I was like, well, I'm so glad there's a way out of this, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean, there was things like that were directly, you know, and I'm not saying I've been delivered from all my passive aggressive ways, but.
You need something? We're live right now.
So you could jump in front of the camera if you'd like.
Our dad goofing off. Anyway,
The message at camp meeting.
so it was like right after my 7th birthday, and my parents, one of my brothers had just been born, so my parents couldn't go to camp meeting. But me and Camille couldn't fathom missing it. Like, we'd never missed one, even though we were 7 and 4.
It was literally the highlight of our entire year. Like, aside from being with like friends that we never got to see, we got to be with Peyton, which was the
like,
ultimate
epic.
treat of all. Like, you know, when you see your cousin, like,
Even though Peyton
Cousins
didn't
are
go
just-
there yet, Peyton wasn't at that camp meeting.
you weren't
Her parents weren't saved yet. They got saved later that year.
really.
At this point, we're mixing up camp meetings however we want.
Yeah, well, it was a long
Camp
time ago.
meeting meant cousins and Kayla.
It did.
Yeah.
Cousins and Kayla. Kayla's like basically our cousin. Anyway, so our parents sent us to stay with Grandmama and Grandpa Senior, and we got to go to camp meeting. We were so thrilled about it. And as far as I remember, it was the first night we were there, and Brother Ray was preaching, and he preached a very scary message as far as my child mind was concerned. And actually, I think there would have been plenty of adults that were scared as well. He has that ability. I'm serious. He preaches the fear of God into you. And I don't remember much about it. The one thing I remember him is talking about, I remember him telling the story of Lazarus and the rich man.
Lazarus was always a
scary.
killer, you know?
Always
Lazarus
scary.
is the scariest story in the Bible.
And like he
To
wanted
an
a
unsaved,
drink,
to my unsaved soul when it was unsaved.
a drink to cool his tongue, and then there was a great gulf
Like,
fixed
and they'd be so scary about the tip, the
Yeah.
trip of
to cool his tongue.
so scary.
And then so that story, and then I remember
I'm not laughing at the story, y'all.
Yeah, please. People always think we're laughing when we're not. I mean, we are laughing, but not. I'm also, the other phrase that sticks in my mind from the time I was 7 was him talking about people asleep. But they're
the brink of
sleeping
hell?
on the
I
very
remember
brink
that
of
too.
hell. And because brink is close to the word brick, I have this image of my mind of a brick wall, like a high sheer brick wall, hell at the bottom, and people like sleeping and they're like right on the edge and gonna like roll off any minute.
Woo.
So going to the prayer bench, which we do, the old-fashioned traditional way, was always so scary to me. Somehow I thought it was
Like
embarrassing.
everyone's looking.
Everyone's looking at you.
They know she's not saved.
She's not.
She must be a sinner.
And I think I had done it one time before, but I think my parents had kind of told me to. So, but this night I was so scared. I was like, I'm gonna do it. And I knew it was the depth of bravery for me because I was doing it at a camp meeting, like a camp
Where
meeting.
there was how many people?
Probably
1,000,
800, between 800 to 1,000.
Like 1,100, yeah.
You think
It's
then there's
1,100. It's
No, it's
1,200
like
now.
13 or
It's like 13 or 14 now.
Okay.
Anyway, I could take you to the spot. I could take you to the exact spot where I like squeezed out of that bench. I wish I could have a recording of the look of horror on my face. I know I had a look of horror.
You're probably whitewashed.
Probably completely pale. Whitewashed.
Your face.
And I walked down that aisle, all the way down that concrete floor.
You look like a plane director.
I walked down that floor, out the aisle, and those short wooden prayer benches. It was perfect for me. It was like my height as a child. And I knelt down and prayed. I remember I was wearing a bright yellow shirt. Remember those horrible yellow blouses that Mom got us?
You were wearing one?
With a checkered brown jumper.
Disgusting.
Yeah, it was the worst. My mom
We
wasn't
probably
there.
thought it was great too.
We probably did. We probably liked
I
it.
thought, I want to wear this
yellow.
again.
This yellow with this jumper. I love this.
But like, okay, there's nothing wrong with yellow, but no. It
was
just
just a
it looked
bad-
like
it
a
was just
rotten
a-
banana, I'm sure.
I'm sure it did. It was just a bad combination. But I got down and I prayed. I don't remember much of my prayer. The only words I remember repeating is saying, Lord, I know I don't deserve this. Hey, this is my salvation prayer.
I'm
No, you're
being
not.
an actress.
I just remember saying, Lord, I know I don't deserve this, but if you'll just please save me. And I remember saying that like kind of just over and over because I think I was just like shaking at that point, you know. And then a sister minister from our church, Sister Sarah Tostiga, her name is, she came down to pray with me. And I prayed.
Shout out.
And I was boohooing at this point. I prayed, and then she prayed. But I knew when people got saved, they took a long time at the prayer bench. So I was like,
You're like, pray more.
pray again.
You're
She was
making
like, do you
stuff
think
up
you're
to
saved?
pray.
This girl was like 15 or 16 at the time herself. And she was like, you know, I'm praying with this little child. She's like, do you think you're saved? You know, with her Tinsman accent. And I was like, pray again. So I prayed again.
So
She prayed
a
again.
7-year-old.
And
like,
then
honestly.
I was like, I'm saved. I don't, like, just relief washed over me. That's the only, like, explanation I can have, like, relief. And I just got up, like, I'm saved. I'm definitely saved.
Well,
and then
I wish my
Camille's story.
experience was that glorious.
It is glorious. It's just,
That same service, I was like 4. I think the next day, actually, I was going to turn 5. And that message was so scary that I was like, nah, I'm not doing it. I went straight to sleep. I was like, I cannot handle the amount of pressure and fire. I'm going to sleep. So I checked out. Like, I was out. And I woke up, and Sophia wasn't by me. And I was like, what's going on? And I looked around, and Sophia was at the prayer bench. So I
and
was
this
like,
time in our lives, we did everything together. Everything.
yeah. And so I was like, oh, I'm not getting left behind. So I and ran to the prayer bench too. And I think the same person that prayed with you prayed with me.
She
Yeah,
prayed with you too?
She prayed with me too. And I didn't know what I was praying for. I was 4 years old. I was like, be good, obey. And I got up, I'm safe too.
So we were so excited. I remember going back to Grandma Grandpa's cabin and jumping up and down on
I
the
just
bed.
thought
Like,
I was safe because you got saved. Like, I did not have that understanding yet.
and then our grandparents made us call our parents and made us call our pastor and tell them. And I was just excited as I could be.
Yeah. So that wasn't my salvation story, but that was my attempt.
Well, so Camille went home and said she was saved.
Number 1.
And Mom and Dad watched her for a while.
They were very discerning. They're like,
discerned.
nah, that ain't
And that's
it.
not what she got at that prayer bench. Whatever it wasn't salvation yet.
Yeah. But I think getting saved at that young of an age, like as you progress, as you get older, it kind of it doesn't update itself, but you kind of
update it.
have to update. You have to keep that up. You have to come to a point like, okay, that was a child's experience. I have more understanding now. I have to make sure I'm living up to what I know, what I've been taught.
So the Bible tells us we move from glory to glory.
Not that you sin and
you have to actually get saved again, but it's like a renewing of your experience as you grow.
Renewing of your mind. The Bible says renewing your mind.
Right.
I remember Brother Daniel Lane preaching how you need to ask God periodically to just renew your mind.
You remember him preaching that, or you went back and listened to it?
I remember listening to a message he preached.
There you go. Yeah, you grow with it, and you get older, and you do it several times. You know, from 7 to 10.
I think I really struggle. I think I really struggle with that sort of understanding.
So tell your story.
Because when I got saved, we were going to, I don't know where to start, but I chopped off my brother's hair.
This is a good story.
Right before a photo shoot.
With the scissors?
Yeah, scissors. I said, I was abusive, okay? I said, if you don't play with me, I'm going to cut your hair off, okay? And I really didn't want to do it, but he really wouldn't play. And then I was like, am I going to go through all my word or not?
This is such big sister syndrome.
So I was like, okay, snip. And he got really big curls, so I cut an entire curl off the front of his hair. And we had family pictures the next day. So my mom was super upset, and my dad was like upset behind her.
How old were you at this time?
I was 8, almost 9. Shouldn't be cutting people's hair. And I was like, I was kind of an old 8. I don't know. Just I was by myself. But I chopped his hair off, and my parents were super mad. And then we had a photo shoot. I still have the photo shoot. Titus still has a bald spot on his hair. The ones where
the gardens ones,
yeah, in the gardens.
I never noticed his.
Yeah, he has a bald spot.
Oh, I have to check that.
So then I was in big trouble, and I knew I was in big trouble because everyone was like furious.
At this point, were you already like under conviction?
Yeah, I was like off and on. Like I said, through the nights, I would be like at my window, peeking out through the blinds, like
eyes.
Yeah.
Camille.
Tell me
the devil is not coming in there.
Okay, like, right?
Don't tell that story.
Then don't tell that story.
Do not tell that story.
And then, yeah, actually, we should. We have a good story.
We have a good story.
I'm telling you, that's not a good story. People are not going to think that's a good story.
Sunday it is. On the weekend, we were going to Elmer, Ontario, Canada for a meeting because we just traveled everywhere back then. If there was a meeting,
you went to it.
We went. If there was an in-church meeting, you went to it. So there was a meeting. I remember I was like in trouble the whole time. I think we stayed at Sister Elfie's house.
Tostiga?
Yeah. And then my dad had told me if I didn't get saved in one of the services there, I was going to have to tell Sister Elfie Tostiga.
Sister Elfie is like, you will never meet a sweeter, more demure person in your life.
Like demure is the absolute definition.
Yeah, as mindful as you can imagine.
It's just like
it's
beyond
just wild.
words.
Yeah.
When she greets you, she says, "Praise the Lord, sister," and takes your
She's probably gonna look at this.
This is a good thing.
This is her.
Okay.
And she takes your face between your hands.
Get embarrassed.
I'm trying to explain to you how sweet she is.
Because this, like, her dad was going to make his daughter confess Sister Demure.
Hey, not Sister Demure. She's definitely gonna watch this.
This is a good thing.
Okay.
I'm just trying to explain to you how
Listen,
sweet.
so
And
she was amazing. Maya told me you're gonna have to tell her what you did, okay? And I was so scared and embarrassed. And I was like,
so if anybody at this point is thinking Peyton's dad is mean, you might be. But the thing is, he understood. Like, it comes from a place of understanding.
I didn't feel like it was mean. Like
he knew Peyton was under conviction. He knew the Lord was doing with her to be saved. She knew she shouldn't have done that. It was just the perfect opportunity to put some pressure.
So Brother Pat preached a message, right? I don't know what it was about. I think it was about the church or something, honestly. Or I don't know, but somehow everyone was going to the prayer bench. And I was like super convicted, and I knew like I had this ultimatum hanging over my head. Like, do I really want to tell Sister Elfie that I cut my brother's hair off? And then
does she know this story?
And then actually, like, I don't know. But actually, I couldn't, even that threat, I couldn't overcome it. Like, I could not go to the prayer bench. I hated it so much. I had never been to the prayer bench before. I could never get myself to do it. I had never done it. And then my dad was like, you go to the prayer bench right now. And I was like, no, I won't. And he was like, yes, you will right now. And I was like, I will not. And I like trying to hide behind my mom, like, and I was like, no, no. And then I went.
The way parents have to get on to you in service.
It's all the memes. It's all the
It's
memes.
hilarious because our parents are such yellers.
Yeah.
You know, but they couldn't do it in service. They'd be like,
And they're like yelling in lowercase, right? As they would say on Instagram. But eventually I was like, okay, I gotta listen. And I remember walking to the prayer bench and I was like, I am never coming down here again. This is the worst. So I'm gonna get saved now. So I'm never
gonna get saved, sanctified,
to
and
come
get all
back.
my help.
I was like, because I am never coming back to the prayer bench again, right? I'm 8 years old. So I get down there and I'm like, I'll be saved. You know, literally, honestly, and this is why I really struggled with it for so long. And I remember praying, and I remember Sister Elizabeth, she said, Lord, help her to be a new creature. And I remember, like, as I prayed, it becoming, like, more real to me, like, okay, like, I actually want to be saved. I don't want to, but I didn't cry. I wasn't like
Me
that.
either. You didn't?
And then,
No, the devil tried to
use
haunt
that
me
against
about
you.
that moment.
oh yeah,
and I
because they
said,
sang
devil,
that song.
You little
I
punk.
cried. You know what I'm
I've gone too far.
I cried, I've gone too far.
And
I was
I'm
like,
I didn't cry.
and I was like, I must not be
I hate
saved.
the accusations we went through. So
Yeah. But then I got up and I was like, well, I'm saved. I prayed. And she was like, did you tell your parents? I remember feeling like after I got up, I felt like completely exuberant and super light.
Yeah, so like.
light is the exact
So
term.
like airy and airheaded. And I'm not trying to make it sound mystical, but this is just how I remember it being 8. And this is just my honest experience with it. And I remember like I told my parents and they're like, what? And they called Brother Steve, right? And it was all exciting. But that was me, so.
I was 8, almost 9 as well. And I was like, such a bad girl. Because
Camille, you weren't.
I know, I wasn't. But like
No, but
around that time,
being
around our
8
peer
and
group,
almost
like
9,
everyone that I was
everyone around us was saved.
Saved pretty much.
Especially in
And,
California, huh?
yeah,
Like,
everyone like was getting saved at a young age. There was some really good preaching at that time, and like we were just at a good spot. But I was stubborn, and I was like, no, and it was just. I remember
like, why?
I don't know. Like it was such a scary thing. Going to the prayer bench was so hard for me. I hated being vulnerable. I hated asking for help. Like it just went against my every natural instinct. Like I'm independent. I don't want help, and you had to break down all those barriers. And that's just like, and I was extremely proud. And you had to be humble. And I just hated it. And I couldn't get past myself. Like. I remember having so many talks with my dad, like, hey, you want to go to the store with me?
Didn't you hate that?
And I'd be like, no, because I knew if I went to the store alone with Dad,
try to
he was
talk
going
to
to be like,
us
so, has
about
the
being
Lord
saved.
been dealing with you? And I'd
And
be like,
it was horrifying.
and I'd have to sit there all scrunched
like
up
in
and mad.
that moment of my life before I got saved, I didn't even like spending time alone with him.
Yeah,
I
because
was like, if
like-
Camille comes, because
I remember that. I'm like, shall go.
he probably would try to talk to me about being saved.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to the prayer bench like quite a few times though before I ever got saved. I remember there like one time 4 people were praying with me. It was like, and I still was just like, no, I just can't do it. I couldn't get past myself, I guess. But
That is so deep.
That is deep.
what do you mean?
That is so overkill to have like 4 people trying to
at that-
pray
yeah.
an 8-year-old
Eight-year-old
into
through.
heaven.
Well, it was my own fault.
I don't know
They'd
why.
be like,
I know.
do you
I'm
want
just
to
saying-
keep praying and work through? And I'd be like, no.
Remember
I want to go back to
Sister
my
Sue
seat.
O'Shea?
Yeah, like I would go to the prayer bench in camp meeting, in children's meeting, at home in service. Like, I don't know. And then, like, when I wouldn't go, Sophia would be the faithful Holy Ghost to remind me that I should be weeping and wailing before the throne of mercy and grace. And I
Because these messages would scare me, and I was saved. I was like, how are they not scaring you?
well, excuse me. They finally did start actually dealing with me.
And probably your understanding grew too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also at that time, when I was younger, I was like, I didn't understand enough. I was like, what's the big rush? I don't care. But by the time I was 8, almost 9, I was like, oh, you know what? Like, this is real, this serious. I do want to change. I don't want to go to hell. I don't want to die. And I would have scary dreams and stuff. So I'd be like, And so, yeah. I don't even remember the message that was preached at all. I just remember, like, not being able to wait till it was over. I'm like, I'm getting saved tonight. I will.
Like you knew it was the night.
And going to the prayer bench, and it didn't take me long. I didn't cry, and that haunted me for a while because like it felt like I wasn't super repentant. You know, they preach about like repentance and how you're so sorry for your sin and you feel bad. Like every
The
tears
time you
streamed.
sinned, it was a lash on the Savior's back, and I'd be like, oh God. But like, I couldn't cry.
Like if you've watched the Third Wheel, you know Camille only cries
If she's hungry.
if she's hungry.
this is not true. No. I cried.
I've
Okay,
been lying.
after I got saved and my dad hugged me, then I cried. That was the only time.
That's
though.
cute.
Yeah, that is.
But yeah, I had like the same Felipe was saying, like just so light and relieved. I remember going to school the next morning and just jumping and
Yes.
dancing and running around and being like, I could not stop grinning. Like,
Yeah.
it's the best feeling you can imagine, for real.
In a way, those were some of the lightest years of my life. Like, just I'm saved, and I just need to do my best, stay saved, and be good, and whatever. So in a way, it was. But I'm telling you, probably like a year or two into my salvation experience, accusations like set in for real. And maybe accusations are a super Church of God word, and we should explain them for our audience. But what we mean when we say accusations is, as a Christian, you deal with the devil, the enemy, speaking in your ear and telling you, you're not good enough in the specific ways that he does. But I think a lot of times we accuse ourselves too. Like,
Yeah, I
you know
believe
what I'm
that.
saying?
I think most people in the world deal with accusations whether or not they're saved. But
Yeah, no.
we just compartmentalize them
Into salvation.
right.
But I just remember, and as a child, you do childish things. And I think the accusations were partly the enemy, partly myself, partly us just needing to upgrade our salvation experience. But you would do stupid things, and the devil would hold it over you. You're not saved. If you were saved, you wouldn't have done that. That unsaved you right there. And then he would go back, and if you had done that back there, like the girl said, if you had cried when you got saved, then you really would have been saved. But that means you're actually not saved.
And you're just so in your head about it. I remember, like, people would preach messages about hell, and I would feel convicted, and I'd be like, Peyton, you would not be convicted if you were saved.
If you were really saved.
And I would just be like, you know what, you should forget it, you're not even saved. And I would feel horrible and nasty.
And a lot of people will probably say that, like, that's super unhealthy for a child to be having those thoughts and going through that, and they can't enjoy life. But
That was when I was like 12, though.
for us, though, like, yeah, we were old enough because we had the understanding it wasn't too much to handle. Like,
Right.
for just a random child that hasn't grown up,
Yeah.
hearing the preaching and listening to the Bible,
be
like,
cruel.
that it wouldn't be right. But because we understood, like, we grew up knowing. And so,
Right. And even though we dealt with that, it wasn't like it made our lives miserable. Like we had the best life. We were happy, we were cheerful, we had fun, we were children. These were things we dealt with at times, but there was always help
It was
available.
like periods, right?
Right. You would go
it's
back
not like
times.
you're
And then
left
you would
alone
hear this
to be-
message, and you would know.
and it would reassure
I'm
you,
saved.
God does love me. I am
And then,
saved.
like, you would, I mean, it's just
And it
like
would
any
hold you.
teenager going through a hormonal phase.
Right.
Honestly, sometimes I think that's literally what it was.
A part of the
Literally
accusations.
just
Absolutely.
going through a hormonal phase and literally just, I just remember being like super depressed and like, well, I'm going to hell. And I remember just being like, well, I don't care. I'm too embarrassed. I'm going to fake it.
Yeah,
I'm going to
same.
raise my hand higher.
I would too. Until somebody tells me to put it down, it's staying up there. If the ministry
Like, because
can't
you
tell,
could only raise your hand in service if you were saved.
right.
Like, you couldn't,
You're
like,
just,
I'm a
you know,
witness.
like this means I'm saved,
saved,
basically.
you know, so.
And I'd say to myself, I'm going to raise my hand. If the ministry can't tell I'm not saved, well, then I must be doing a pretty good job faking. I'm going to keep on, like, that's how I would talk to myself during those times. During those times, I felt
Do
like
you
I
remember
wasn't
when you
saved.
came through it? Like, whenever you were not, like,
I was 12, and it was another camp meeting, and I got sanctified. And after that, the accusations,
Oh, wow.
I still
I
had
got
them, but they
fake
got way less.
sanctified.
I did too. Oh, I did too. And my
Everyone
parents
did,
would watch
okay?
me and be like, no, try again.
I think everyone did.
That's another podcast, probably.
Sanctification is a whole nother
Whole nother
podcast.
podcast.
Another podcast.
But
And that'd be
I
serious.
will eternally be grateful, and people can feel bad for me. People can think it was wrong. People can think it was cruel. But I think when it comes down to it, it should be my opinion and my experience, our opinion and our experience. And I think I can speak for both of these girls when I say, and I let them speak for themselves, we are eternally grateful we got saved at a young age. We don't regret it. We don't want it any other way.
And I think,
No.
I just think growing up, we can undervalue it, you know, and
Right.
look out, not necessarily out even, but just like look around and see what people are doing. Like, well, I haven't experienced that. And, you know, what if I did this? What would my life be like? It would be different and whatever. You know, the thoughts you have. But really, we were not
We
just
were
saved from sin,
spared.
but we were spared from so much. Like, saved from so much hurt that we could have experienced.
We were
And,
sheltered. And of
yeah,
course,
we don't realize really how much.
right. And of course, there were things that we had to grow up later on and learn because of the sheltering, but it was worth it. The amount of harm we were sheltered from was worth the amount of things that we had to be like, oh, I never knew that we had to learn a little late in life. It was worth the amount of, and we were blessed that way.
And honestly, I think it's been done a pretty good job because, you know, there's just young people that grow up in a strict church and then they're 18 and they wild out.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying we haven't had our share of that in the church. We have had those young people that wild out. But for some reason, however, our parents, however, our pastors, however, we were able to transition. We were able to transition into being able to do something like this that could possibly be relatable to somebody that's watching. And we could
only do that with our parents and the ministry's help. Like that child's experience that we had, there's so many times I could have lost it, and then I would go to my dad, or I'd go to my mom, or I'd go to a local minister. I always talked to Sister Cynthia. Somehow she was just so child friendly to me. I'd be like, hey, I'm not saved. I did this. And she'd be like, no, and the Lord still loves you. And after I would talk to her, I would know. I am saved again. I would talk to the Pat Jr. He was my Sunday school teacher. No, you're fine. You're safe. But I kept having to go back for help. I couldn't have done that by myself.
And it's good. The Bible says, seek out your own salvation with fear and trembling.
The Bible says that amongst true counselors, there's safety.
At a really young age.
We just did it at a young age.
Not all of it was pleasant, but
it was not all of it we would do the same, but
we wouldn't do the same. Not necessarily would we do all the same for our children necessarily.
And some of it was a little young.
Yeah, every person is so different too. Like we are not expecting everyone's salvation experience to look like ours by no means.
At all. We just wanted to share ours.
But we do have a real experience of salvation. And if you need an example, and if you need something to look at, hey, we do really have something to be proud about. We do have something that's actually real in our soul, and that saved us from sin.
And the saving power of Jesus Christ, the beautiful thing about it is, and the beautiful thing about what we believe about it is, he doesn't just save you and wash you from sin. The power of the blood is that he keeps you from sin every day. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. That doesn't mean you don't make wrong choices.
That's a whole nother podcast
that doesn't mean, too. It is. It doesn't mean you don't mess up. But Jesus keeps you from sin. The power of his blood. And that's a beautiful experience to have. Mm-hmm. I can't believe it. I've been saved 16 years. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's not me. That's all him. That's all God.
It's all God.
So that's a good song.
That's our story. We're so happy for the privilege that we had to share it with you today.
that was such much. I'm so happy for the privilege I have to be with you today. I'm so thankful for the privilege I have to be in the Church of God.
What? It wasn't what? Like a testimony?
Yeah.
It's the privilege I had to be here. It's like I would start a message off like that. So thankful for the privilege I had to be here.
To be here in the Church of God. We need to think of a different intro.
No, we don't.
No, that's how we do.
Well, then we need to think of a way to make our intro more...
We can make it more interesting.
It's like not saying,
unique.
hi, welcome back to God to be me. What else are you going to say?
I just think you can personalize it.
I have fat kneecaps.
Okay.
As you get older...
Fat kneecaps.
No, you don't. You have the pokiest, knobbiest kneecaps on planet Earth.
Like skinny kneecaps. Like they have skin on them.
Okay.
Lots of them from playing.
Anyway, thank you for being here with us. We love you all. We appreciate the comments, the subscribers. We'll see you there. Y'all know what time it is. Peace, love, and hair grease.